So I want to be clear that I am only going over the basics of this, but I want to kind of explain what enums are and how they work in Rust. So why do we need enums? Because almost every programming language has some form of an enum. And what exactly is an enumerated variable? So let's think about, I want to reference colors. And let's say that there are 10 possible options for colors in my program. And instead of having strings represent the different colors, I want to be able to reference them quickly and not waste a lot of time trying to figure out what color is what. So I'm going to define that 0 is going to be red, 1 is going to be blue, 2 is going to be yellow. And so now when I refer to color, I just look at this integer value and I determine what color it is based on what that integer representation is. Well, there's a couple problems with this. First of all, the complexity of trying to figure out what color is what number is kind of self-defeating, because if I've got a bunch of colors, then I'm really going to get kind of confused, and I'm always going to have to be going back to look up an index to see what color it is that I'm working with. That's the first problem. The second problem is integers can hold a lot of different values. So if I've got 15 different colors, there's no way for me to limit someone from putting in color 22, which breaks my program because I no longer know what color 22 is. So enums come in to fix this problem. And so basically what it does is it gives me the ability to give an integer a name. And so instead of having 0 be red, I'm just going to say that I'm defining an enum, and red is part of that enum. The back end, the program, is still using integers like we were using before, but the programming language, the thing that I'm using to compile everything, is actually using the enum, or the color red. And so it allows the debugger, when it goes through and actually debugs your code, or not the debugger, but the compiler, when it goes through and compiles your code, it allows it to be able to check to make sure that nowhere in that application has anyone assigned a value to a color that doesn't exist. So enums are extremely powerful. And anywhere that you're trying to keep up with a list of things, an enum 99% of the time is the way that you want to actually go and do that. So let's take a look at how Rust deals with enums. So the first thing is up here at the top of the program here, you can see that I've defined an enum called colors. And just like structures that we were dealing with earlier, enums work the exact same way. We say that we're doing an enum instead of a struct, and we give it a bunch of names. And each one of those names in the background is referencing an integer, but we don't care about that because we only care about red is red. So we define an enum here, and we say the name of it is going to be colors, and inside of those colors is going to be red, blue, and yellow. Pretty simple. Exactly the same thing as what we did with structures, except you'll notice there's no type here, because the mere fact that it is an enum, it knows that it's an integer in the background. So that's all there is to defining what colors is. So now let's see what we have to do to use it. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to tell it to let C equal colors, and I'm going to define it to be red. So I'm going ahead and letting C equal the color red. And so then the question is now, how do I use that later on? How do I determine that C is 0 in our example? Well, I'm not ever going to ask, is C 0? I'm instead going to ask, is C the color red? And so the way that you do that is a couple different ways. The first way is you can see that we have done a match. So match is a special function that exists for or macro or whatever. I don't think it's a macro, but it's a special thing that allows us to match up enums so that we can determine what they actually equal. And so you can see here that we're saying match C, and then the options are, if it's color red, so colors is the name of our enum, so there's colors. So colors, and then remember our : is a way to get to the subvalues of whatever it is. If we're dealing with libraries, then it allows us to break the libraries down. So the : is kind of like the dot notation in other languages to get to drill into things. So we're saying if colors : red So we're matching C, and we're saying if the color is red, then do. So this is telling it to do this operation, and so here we're putting in curly braces, print line, we are red, and then we do another one for blue and another one for yellow. Well, let's go down here and let's comment out these two guys and try to run this. And you can see here that it's telling us that we have a problem. Blue and yellow were not covered in our match. So we have defined blue and yellow, but they're not covered in the match that we just did. And if we look here at the note, it says the matched value is of type colors. And then we've got some extra help here. Ensure that all possible cases are being handled, possibly by adding wildcards or more arms. Now, what is an arm? Rust considers an arm every option. So as an example, here is another arm. So right now I've got two arms inside of this match. So if we were to go back out here, and let's get a little space here so we can see what we're doing. So now it just tells us that we didn't match yellow. So we didn't cover the case in yellow. Well, that's kind of a pain if I'm only looking for the color red. So let's comment these two guys back out and take a look at adding this parameter in here. So the underscore is a way to tell the system that I want to match every possible option that I haven't explicitly covered. And so underscore says if I match red, do this. If I don't match any of these other colors, or if I do, even if I do, I'm telling it to just ignore them. So go get every other match condition and then send it a blank result. So it's basically just eating any, if color is yellow, then it's not going to do anything down here at all. So if I were to come up here and we define color when we create it, we declare it as yellow, and then we come down here and run, you'll see that it is not doing anything. It didn't print anything at all. Now, up here it's telling me that we didn't ever construct a blue or a red, which they're just warnings. And I didn't, because I only created a yellow, so we don't really care about those warnings for this example. But let's go back up. Let's change this back to red. And then let's come down here and let's do away with all of this, because this is a lot of code when I'm only looking to see if I'm matched up to a red. And so let's go up here and let's uncomment these guys. And so what we're going to do now is we're looking to see with an if statement, if C double equal sign, which is what pretty much every language uses for an equal. So if C equals colors blue, so colors is our enum, and we're telling it to match blue, which behind the scenes is probably a number 1, but we don't really care. So if C colors blue, then print we are blue. So let's see what happens here. Right now our color is red, so we're going to run and nothing happens. Actually, we got an error here. If colors, or if C equals colors blue. Okay, so there's another problem, and this is something a little odd, but if you don't want to use a match condition and you want to be able to do if conditions and look at this, then what you have to do is up here where we declared our enum, we have to add this up here at the top. So we're telling it to derive partial, equal, and equal. So it's basically adding a condition to enum for it to be able to compare its individual values. I don't know why it doesn't do this automatically, but it doesn't. So if I want to be able to declare or to look to see what a color specifically is, then I have to add this derive command up here at the top of it. So if we come down here now and we go back over here to take a look at this particular example, we can see that again with the errors gone, but we didn't get any results because our color is blue, and or what we're looking for, and that color is red that we defined. So we're going to get rid of these guys. Let's do this again. And so now you can see that it printed out we are red because that particular condition actually matched. Now, there are a lot of other things that you can use with enums. One of the things is dealing with some values and no values. So I highly recommend going over to read the book to get into more detail as to how you would use some of that stuff. I prefer to wait until I actually need things before I start digging into them. I do know they exist because I did read the book, but I'm not going to just start trying to cover every single thing in the language when we're not actually needing to use it. So again, just to recap, enums are extremely important to understand. Anytime you have any kind of a list that you want to match up exactly what it is that you've set, an enum is probably the best way to go about doing that, because you can give an explicit name to the value instead of actually having an integer or a 0, 1, 2, 3 to represent something.